Welcome to the Women Who Change the World podcast, the place where everyday women world changers share their stories to inspire, challenge, and equip you to change your world.
The event of the year for Christian business owners is just around the corner. Handprint Legacy Live 2021 is virtual this year, which makes it super easy to attend from anywhere in the world, without makeup, long flights, or expensive hotel rooms. Thursday through Saturday, June 24 to 26, we'll spend 3 powerful days mapping out your first or next most important steps for your business. I'm Katie Horner. My husband and I have grown from full-time ministry in Mexico to full-time international business owners by understanding and solving the countless marketing challenges faced by Christian entrepreneurs. We created the Handprint Legacy Live event as a safe haven where small business owners, teachers, authors, and coaches strategize, implement, and grow their business. This event is highly interactive and tickets are limited. Grab yours today before we sell out, because 3 days of Bible-based fun and marketing instruction is going to leave you with your next marketing funnel all mapped out. Register now for the 2021 event at handprintlegacylive.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Women Who Change the World. I am with my friend Debra, and we are here to talk to you about your marriage. Yes, you heard that right. We're going to talk about all kinds of things here. But today we're going to talk about marriage with my friend Debra, who is a marriage counselor. How are you, Debra?
I'm doing well, Samantha. So nice to be able to meet with you today.
So you and I met through Katie Horner's Business with God, which that's part of the advertisement going this month, guys. You ought to check it out. Tell me, I've heard a little bit about what you do, but tell me your story of how you got to where you are now.
I would love to. It's very interesting. I think we get to where we are in life through different avenues. Not always the easiest, not always the best, not always the most fun. And for my story, I was raised being told constantly, sit down and shut up. I don't want to hear what you have to say. What you have to say is not important. Those kinds of things. And so I basically was very quiet through my school years, those kinds of things. And then when I got to be an adult, I thought, wait a minute, I really do have a voice. I really do have things to say. And as life went on, and I was working and I had married, I got to a point where, God really ministered to me about sharing his heart with people. And often I would have people come to me and sit down in my cubicle and tell me about how horrible their marriage was. And I thought, why are they telling me? Like I had the answers or something. But more and more people did that. I had neighbors come to me and as they would talk to me, they kept saying, Debra, you need to coach. You do have a voice. You do have things that people need to hear. And my first marriage, my husband ended up killing himself. So we went through a very difficult, stressful time. I had one daughter. And, I thought what do I have to say? I mean, my husband even killed himself, right? But when I got remarried and through the trials and learning periods that I had, I also married another man. We've been married 31 years. We have had a very rocky road marriage, but I will tell you the things that I have learned through all the ups and downs have truly brought me to a place where the voice, the message that God gave me, started to take form, take place. And then we got into marriage coaching, not because we felt like we had all the answers, but because we had a need. And I find that the more you teach, the more you learn. And so that's what I've done for the last, 29, 30 years is we have taken many courses. We've learned, we've spent time before the Lord and asked him, how does he want us to get up his marriage? What does marriage represent? So many people don't know what marriage represents. Why do you get married? It's not just because you're attracted and you want to, have this wonderful relationship and have children. There's so much more to the purpose of marriage, and that's now what we get to share with our couples and encourage them. And it's been a wonderful journey, not easy, but a wonderful journey.
So, what is the most common reason people get married?
Oh my gosh, my husband and I got married because I know this sounds maybe inappropriate, but people get married because they want to have sex. They don't want to, they don't want to do things outside of marriage, if you will. And we've never really taken the time to get to know the other person. And backing up, we didn't take the time to get to know ourselves, who we are. So people get married because they're lonely. People get married because they think it's a thing to do. I used to have people tell me, Deborah, you're 25 years old, you got to get married. And what did I do? I went out and got married. I married the wrong person for me. But I think we marry for so many different reasons. And I think that if we were to give it time, if we were teachable, and if we would have listened, we would have gotten to know ourselves better so that we knew exactly what it was and who it was we were actually looking to spend a lifetime with.
I remember from a movie when they were talking about why you got married.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I think it was called Dance with Me. It had Richard Gere and Jennifer Lopez in it,
Oh,
and Sharon Sarandon. And she said people get married because they want their life to be seen.
oh, that's very interesting.
They want to know that their life mattered.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in a way, well, in many ways, I think she's really right, because normal people, just the everyday person, isn't really, you see them, you pass them by, and it's not a big deal because they're not in your circle. But the
Right.
people who are part of your family, their life matters. My husband is seen by me. I appreciate the things that he does. I push him to do the things that he should do. Go to the doctor. You're sick, go to the doctor. But even in those annoying moments, he is seen, and his life is, I guess you could say, validated. Does that make sense?
It does. And I believe that we all are looking for someone to validate that we have worth, that we were created for a purpose and a reason, and our gifts, our talents, our passions, our dreams, our likes, our dislikes are recognized. That that people say, oh my gosh, if you want to know how to go fishing and getting the right fishing spot, hey, go over, talk to Joe over here, or go over to Sam, he knows where. People want to be identified as having a gift or a talent or a purpose. And so I think what you're saying is very true.
So you were mentioning about, pre-marriage counseling and what we're looking for and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, when my husband and I got married, the man who did the ceremony was the preacher of the congregation where he worshiped. And the premise of it, he's like, this is marriage, this is for life. And the only thing he had to say to me is that in my vows, I have to say, obey.
Mhm.
That was it. There was nothing else really about this. And I've talked to other friends of mine, and they're like, yeah, that's the typical pre-marriage counseling from the church. I see a lot of holes in that. There's a lot of problems there.
You know, Samantha, I would agree with you 100%. Personally, first of all, I think that's religion. And I think sometimes we miss God's word because we've been taught a religion or their way, man's way. When I look at that, I see my husband and I both view it as we walk side by side. We both have value. We both complete one another. He doesn't lord over me, I don't lord over him. And I think it's very important for, especially women. I think there's been a lot of hurt within the church arena, if you will, that has said, you have to submit to me. Well, if you start reading the word, it talks about the man serving his wife,
Mm-hmm.
giving his life for his wife. It doesn't say the wife comes in and just bows and she's the rug that he walks on. No, the word talks about the man surrenders his life for his wife. To me, that gives a picture of Jesus, because that's what Jesus did for all of us. He gave his life for us. And I believe men, as they do that in the relationship with their wives. Now, I believe that women need to be careful not to also take that and say, see, you need to die for me, and my opinion matters more than yours. I don't agree with that. And I don't think the word supports that. I think we are to serve one another. When my husband and I, it's so funny. We had someone not too long ago say, will you two quit fighting over who's going to give who what? Because it has kind of come down to the fact that I love to serve him. I get great joy. I get great pleasure out of that. But then so does he. So what we're finally, after 31 years, we're having to say, okay, now wait a minute. We have to allow each other to give to one another. So I think it's very important that we get back to what the word has to say, not necessarily what we've been taught, because we're responsible to know what the word says, not to carry out what we've been taught, if you will.
And even what we've been taught may not be what the Bible says, but just what the tradition or the feeling or what they were told was supposed to be.
Exactly.
So, this whole need for the man to show up and be the hero,
Mm-hmm.
could that be a possible reason that women are so obsessed with like the romantic novels?
Oh, I think so. I think for so long, men have kind of checked out, and the women have had to come alongside the family and work and this and that and the other. And, I've heard a husband the other day, look, I'm home. I'm not going to go to the children. They can fend for themselves. And if they need anything, they can go to you. And I just cringed because I thought, oh my gosh, my husband comes home, and bless his heart, he's learned to come in and say, honey, is there anything that you need today that I can do? Do you need me to run to the store? Do you need me to start dinner? Blah, 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 blah. Um, and I think so many fathers have and husbands have stepped out, that these women are going to these novels because they crave the attention. They crave to know that they're loved. And so I would love to see, and this is what we deal with in our clients. We get to show them the value of the roles that they play within the marriage covenant. And it's very enlightening. I've had couples walk out, go, wow, that's so not what I expected. That is cool. I never knew that. It was like this big weight was lifted off of them, because they don't have to, neither one have to do everything. They get to do things together. And we have seen great results when they understand their purpose. It's not just what the purpose for the marriage, but their roles, and how, as they play those roles, if you will, it can be very playful. It can be fun. It can be engaging. It can be something that the husband looks forward to when he comes home, and the wife and the whole family can be engaged in that. And so, oh yeah, I love the fact that we get to share with couples. There's so much more to marriage than what the world shows us.
So I'm going to ask probably a very rhetorical question because I know the answer, but it was something that I was told very early in my marriage
Mhm.
and has deeply affected me. I was told by a family member that she and her husband never argued, never had a fight. They always agreed with each other on everything. And that because my husband in many ways is a very easygoing guy,
Mhm.
unless you get his opinion provoked, and then he's very stubborn, which is good because I'm very stubborn.
Uh-huh.
But it affected me as if I was the only problem in our marriage. And I've been married, it'll be 26 years
Mhm.
in May. And so all the problems, and he heard this too.
Mhm.
So in his frame of mind, if we ever had problems, it was my fault. It had nothing to do with him.
Mhm.
So first off, please tell me that what this person said was not true. And then tell me she's laughing at me. She's laughing at me.
Oh goodness. I'll tell you, girl, my husband and I, number one, that is a fallacy. that is not real world. That isn't real world in the Word of God or here, you know. And it's so funny you say that, because my husband and I uh, fight and argue. I'll say, "Well, I meant this." He goes, "Well, I said that." "No, you didn't. You said this." And but you know, it's funny. We end up laughing at the end because we're both honestly trying to say the same thing. But are you kidding me? There are no perfect marriages out there. Not one. I don't care who you are. If you find one, run away, because there's something missing. Part of our relationship is the disagreement. And you know, stop and think about this. God gave us each an imagination. My imagination and his imagination, how he walks through that in his thought process, is completely different from mine, and I need that. I need that. I need that person who says, "I don't think so, Deborah, not this time, honey." You know, because it gives me a place or a platform where I say, "Okay, but let me explain what I'm trying to say to you." And we go back and forth all the time. It's healthy. It is such a healthy thing, because it is communication. People need to communicate. It doesn't mean to yell and scream and you dishonor one another. So let's make that clear. But it doesn't mean you can't raise your voice. It doesn't mean you can't say, "Wait a minute, you didn't hear what I thought I said." So, oh my gosh, no, that's a fallacy that we shouldn't argue, or that we shouldn't have disagreements. We're two different people. We were raised in two different families. I mean, from as far as north is from the south. And so, no, I say that a good quote unquote argument means you're communicating, you're opening up, you're saying. And one day I just started crying to, and my husband's like, "What's wrong with you?" "I need you to hear me." Because I thought I did, you know. And then we ended up laughing at the end, because really he heard it. I just didn't hear that he heard it. So
Mm-hmm.
I love it when people say, "We argue all the time." Good. Tell me how you argue. Because there's a good way and there's a bad way, but just tell me how you argue, because everybody does or should.
Early in my marriage, my husband and I were a lot louder than we are now.
Yes, I
We
hear.
have grown up since then, and
Yeah.
we know the side effects it has on our children because
Mhm.
of it.
Sure.
So it's yeah, there's still the times where it just goes,
Yeah.
and usually it comes down to my husband is thinking ahead to the next thing, and I'm like, "You need to actively listen to me because I'm trying to tell you something."
Yeah.
Or he thinks he told me something, but he didn't,
Uh,
because, well, he knew it, so therefore I should know it. I'm like, "Dude, I can't plug into your brain, and I don't want to plug into your." My husband is an engineer, so he's been trained to think a certain way, and
Mine too.
he
Yep.
thinks he thinks that I should be able to think that way, and I'm like, "No, no, I've not been trained."
Yeah.
But it's been very good to just say, "Okay, you go do it. I don't know. I don't need the details. You just go and do your thing, and it'll be done right."
Yeah.
So, I'm looking through here because I had been writing down questions as you've been talking. Um, and you've been answering them like crazy, and a lot of them are just mine. And I'm
That's okay.
talking to fill the space.
That's
Okay,
okay.
so my the only thing I could talk about is my experience because I don't share other people's stories.
Yes.
My husband was very much a go to work and come home. And he did some things around the house that were guy things. He cut the grass and he fixed things and he did that. But everything else was left up to me.
Mm-hmm.
I paid the bills. I homeschooled the kids. I have 7 children that I
Yes.
homeschool. I did all the other things.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me feel like a single mom.
Yes.
And then COVID happened and he started working from home. And one day he asked me, he said, "I'm going to have to go back to work. What do you think about that?" I said, "I think that you better not leave me as a single mom again, that you better be active in our family's life
Mm-hmm.
because I can't go back to, now that I've seen a different side, I can't go back to being a single mom and just taking it and not expect me to be frustrated."
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
So how am I, who's been a single, basically been a married single mom for 21, 22 years,
Mhm.
how am I supposed to deal with that and be respectful to my husband while taking care of myself
Mhm.
and my children and not becoming bitter and angry and wanting to say, get out, don't come back?
That's a very good question. Let me ask you a question before I answer your question, and that is, have you, tell me how you have asked for his help in the past.
Um, there was a time I didn't ask for his help at all because he was working 2 jobs.
Mhm.
But it would be things like when my oldest were little, could you watch the kids while I make dinner?
Mhm.
Well, it's your job to do both at the
Mhm.
same time. My oldest was always into things, always climbing all over things, always doing
Uh-huh.
things.
Yeah.
And then my daughter was very clingy, so it's hard to cook when you've got little kids. So it would be, can you help me
Mhm.
do this so I can do my job? But he saw it as all my job, and he went to work, so his job is done.
Mhm. Because I often find that, not always, but I often have found that if we can ask a question in such a way, let's say, like, my husband is also an engineer. He, thinks completely different. Um, I'm a futuristic thinker. And so I have things all lined up. I have things in categories, all those kinds of things. Um, but I think how we ask our questions, I need you. I just would love to have you come and interact with us. You are so valuable. And can you just give me just 8 minutes or 5 minutes? Would you just be willing to do that? And I have found sometimes if we will break things down for them, because sometimes they think they've got so much going on, they can't see how they can get 5 minutes in, 8 minutes in, 15 minutes in. But if we present it to them in such a way as, I have missed you so much today. And if you could just even come and sit in the kitchen or stand in the kitchen and just have a 5-minute conversation with me as you hold the children, that would just mean the world to me. And then let me know what I can do for you. So I think sometimes it's not just because I think sometimes talking with my husband, he feels as though it's more of a demand on his time instead of a request because I want to be with him. And that I see I can show the value of just having him close to me. And so I think sometimes it's how we present our needs to our spouse that's very important.
That makes a lot of sense. Because usually by the time he comes home, well, especially when my oldest ones were little, it was like, good, you're here. I'm going to the bathroom. I don't want anybody to bother me while I go to the bathroom. Because
Oh, right.
that was the phase of life. And the thing is there's different needs in different parts of your life. My oldest two are 18 months apart. Then there was 4 years, and the next two are 16 months apart.
Mhm.
So I didn't get a break all day long. And it was kind of like, here, you be dad for a few minutes, and
Mhm.
I'm going to go to the bathroom, or I'm going to go to the grocery store because I forgot something. And the concept, and I've heard it from other people where the dad will say, yeah, I'll babysit the kids. And it's like, no, 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 you've helped make these children. You're not babysitting them. You are parenting your
Mhm.
children. So it's an attitude of, I'm tired, I'm worn out.
Mhm.
He's tired and worn out, but
Mhm.
he's not willing to relieve. And so it creates this whole fiasco. She doesn't know what he's dealt with that day,
Right.
and honestly doesn't care because she's dealing with her own thing. And he doesn't know what she's dealt with because he's dealt with his own thing and doesn't really care. We got to start caring, and somebody has got to be willing to give a little more.
Yeah, someone's got to lead. Somebody's got to start the process, if you will.
Mhm.
And I think often, we as women need to put ourselves in their place, saying, okay, if I were him and I just came home and I just wanted 5 minutes to myself, because this is what my husband and I did. Can you give me 5 minutes And so we finally got to the point where we gave each other 10 minutes before we said, okay, how was your day? We needed that time. And so it's coming into agreement, which is so incredibly powerful, that when you're coming into an agreement where you've given him that 5 minutes or the 10 minutes he needs to take a breath, he's home now, his environment has changed,
Uh-huh.
before we ask him to be a part of anything more in his day. I think that's important. I think we need to show some grace and some mercy there instead of just saying, hey, I need to push these kids over on you, because I'm tired too, blah, 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 blah. And you're right. Somebody has to start that process. Someone's got to be willing to lead. And it doesn't matter, honestly, you're a team. It doesn't matter who starts it. Just somebody started and then, and then talk about it. Say, honey, that meant so much to me today. I enjoyed that so much. I love having you come home and this time, having this time together, and then you communicating with all of us. I love to hear your voice. I just told my husband the other day, I said, just to hear your voice today was awesome. It only been like 6 or 7 hours. But I said, I just love listening to you. I love your voice. I love to hear you. And he looked at me and he goes, really? And I said, honey, I do value you. And he goes, I know that, but you like my voice? And I said, yeah. So, find something that you love about him so much that just means the world to you. Let him know that. It's important.
That's kind of how 2020 went for us. In 2019, his mother passed away. And 22 days later, his grandmother passed away. It was just a very hard year. So 2020, I was actively, because he was home, I would actively compliment him on the things that he did and the way he picked up with things. And he told me, he goes, I don't know if I want to go back to work full time because I actually enjoy homeschooling the kids. And I'm like, good, you can do it. Because we have a 6-year-old boy who's a lot like his oldest brother, who is always busy and into things, and he needs that alpha male presence. And that's the thing that I've talked to him about, is like, your presence makes a difference with the kids because dad is here, and you can't get away with things because he doesn't appreciate when the kids treat me poorly. If they're actively doing it in front of him, he's on top of it. He's like, no, we're not even going there. And so words of affirmation is one of his major love languages. And the hard thing is it's not mine at all. So I have had to actively, consciously do things that I'm like, I don't understand why you need this, but I'm going to give it to you and we're going to be okay. Because it makes you feel better.
That's right.
It's a growing process, and it's a give and take. And
the give and take isn't always the same. It's not in the same measure.
No, it's not, because the way he reacted to when my grandma died was not the same as how I reacted when his mom and grandma died. But I was in a different place. I had grown. So how do you deal with like one spouse who's really grown and the other spouse who has not grown, and the one resents the other for growing because it's kind of like, you left me behind?
Well, I've actually experienced that in my marriage. My husband, I'm a learner. I love to learn. I love to take courses. I love to read. I mean, give me a book. I mean, I can go through 3 or 4 books, in a month or so. I love to learn. And my husband kept saying, why don't you just accept yourself the way you are? Why do you feel like you have to learn? Why do you have to feel like you have to grow? Blah, 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 blah. And I'd say, because it's important to me, well, I think you ought to just stop it. I think you and constantly gave me resistance, constantly. I don't want to hear about it. It's fine. I go to share with him. He's like, whatever kind of a thing. And so I wouldn't share with him as much, but I would continue my courses. I continued to grow. And when we had days where I felt like I'd share with him, then he started getting to the point where he was more willing to be a part of it. He resisted, he's resisted an area in his life, and I won't share that because I've not gotten permission for that, but an area in his life that he's just now, after 31 years of marriage, willing to even look at. And it's major. It is critical major. He didn't want to learn about it. He didn't want to, and I picked up recently, someone gave us a book for both of us to read, and everything I had said to him was in that book. But out of love and respect for him, I simply said, "Oh, I think there's some good information there. What are your thoughts?" And so I'm learning to say, now that he's willing to grow, what are your thoughts? Not, you know what? I could have told you so. Look right there on page 65. I told you. I don't do that. I go back and I go, really? Tell me what your thoughts on that. How did that connect with what we just talked about? Because I'm interested. And so I did have a husband that really resisted it. But I think the key there is you keep growing, you keep praying, you keep honoring. And I believe that's how we have now gotten to the place that we're at. Not that I didn't mention it. I'll be real honest with you. I'd say, honey, what about this? Do you want, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not. And I said, well, I found in my own power, I can't change me. I can only be willing. The Lord makes the changes. And so I did mention that throughout this 30 years. But when he finally got to that point of wanting also to grow and to learn, I think it's very important not to throw that in their face, but to join the journey with them and say, oh, I'm so excited for you. Tell me about that. And when he comes in and he says, honey, remember that book we were reading? Yeah. Well, this is what I got out of that. I then shut up. I don't share with him what I got out of it because it's not important at that stage. But I do want to hear what he has to say. If he's willing to learn, I'm willing to listen.
Hey everyone, I know that we are just getting started into this episode, but I had to cut the podcast episode in half to make 2 episodes because it was just too good to edit anything out. Be on the lookout because part 2, I promise, is worth the wait.
The event of the year for Christian business owners is just around the corner. Handprint Legacy Live 2021 is virtual this year, which makes it super easy to attend from anywhere in the world without makeup, long flights, or expensive hotel rooms. Thursday through Saturday, June 24 to 26, we'll spend 3 powerful days mapping out your first or next most important steps for your business. I'm Katie Horner. My husband and I have grown from full-time ministry in Mexico to full-time international business owners by understanding and solving the countless marketing challenges faced by Christian entrepreneurs. We created the Handprint Legacy Live event as a safe haven where small business owners, teachers, authors, and coaches strategize, implement, and grow their business. This event is highly interactive and tickets are limited. Grab yours today before we sell out because 3 days of Bible-based fun and marketing instruction is going to leave you with your next marketing funnel all mapped out. Register now for the 2021 event at handprintlegacylive.com.